Hi guys. Sorry for the delay. I'm very high maintenance. So anyway, this is my presentation on that one time I USB baited RIT, but actually more officially, it was my USB drop experiment at RIT. Before I start, I want to give credit to, this was my capstone project last spring. So I want to give credit to my group mates, Emery, Annika, and Sohan, and then also my faculty advisor, Justin Pelletier. They also worked on the experiment and everything with me. So first, just like who am I? I'm a fourth year / kind of master's cybersecurity major. I love infra. I am the IRSXEA, and I used to be the social media head for RITSec. I'm also a member of WIC and Gymnastics Club. I like a lot of things. Yeah, let's move on. So first, just a little introduction to the project. So what is a USB drop? A USB drop is when a malicious USB is left somewhere with the intention of someone else picking it up and plugging it into a device. So you could think of this as like the physical equivalent of sending out a phishing email almost. It's kind of like the same idea. And then also, when I say a device, this could be a personal device or a company device depending on what the goal is of the USB drop. So do these attacks really work? I would argue yes. So this is an article about Stuxnet, which was not a USB drop in its simplest form, but it was deployed via a USB, and basically it was used to mess with the centrifuges at a nuclear facility in Iran. And yeah, it was like a big deal. I did not prepare for this presentation. I was a bit busy this week. Sorry. Yeah, anyway, this is an article that another college did where it was very similar to our experiment, but it was a lot of years back, so we wanted to see if this work was still relevant and if people still do pick up USBs that they find. And then this is an article that someone posted on Dark Reader about their pen test that they did for a company where they just dropped USBs outside of their company. So my project proposal was to find out what factors would make a USB drop more effective, and I kind of wanted to test this out. So next we're going to move on to experimental design. We wanted, right before we get into it, I want to make it clear that the idea was to drop the USBs around RIT's campus, and every time someone plugged one in, we would get a callback, and we were going to track which factors the plugins were showing had the most success. So the two factors that we tested was the USB design and the drop location. For design, we were trying to figure out if the USBs were more enticing when they were visually appealing, curiosity-inducing, self-serving, or if they were trusted USBs, whereas with the location, we were trying to determine if it was better to target specific victims or drop the USBs in busier areas and just hope someone picked it up. So for our USB design, the first one was a plain black USB. This served as our control to determine if the design actually had any effect or if people were just plugging them all in because why not? Our next one had the word confidential on it. The goal of this one was to see if curiosity was a motivator in picking up a USB. I would also like to note that the idea for this came from researching what made phishing emails so successful. So if you do research into that, some big things about phishing emails is curiosity and trust. So I thought we would test that here also. Another factor that we tested was reward. So we had a USB that we dropped around midterm time where we had the words Chem 142 exam on it, implying that if they picked this up, they would get the answers to this exam. We also thought some staff might pick this up, trying to prevent students from like getting the test answers or something like that. And then our last USB just had RIT branding on it, or not last, second to last USB had RIT branding on it. This is where we incorporated the trust idea, where we wanted to see if people were more likely to pick up the USBs if they thought it was either from a member of the community or owned by the school or something like that. Our last USB was eye-catching. It was an orange USB with a tiger keychain, so it does still kind of look vaguely related to RIT. I couldn't think of a word better than greed, but that's not a good word. We just wanted to see if people would pick them up if they just wanted them, you know. And then we had 2 types of drop locations. We had general population locations and specific population locations. So general populations were places where there was just more foot traffic and not necessarily a specific group of people, just a lot of people. And then specific populations targeted places where the people there would commonly use USBs. So general population locations, we had Crossroads, Gracie's, S-Lot, F-Lot, The Shed, and Gosnell. And then under them, I have just like their legal names in case you were wondering. I don't know. And then specific population locations, we had the GCI. So if you saw any around here, I hope you plugged it in, honestly. Also Gleason, Magic, and then the sysadmin lab, which actually someone told me they saw the USBs in the sysadmin lab when we were doing it, which made me happy. I also want to point out that part of the reason we chose to do specific locations is because we kind of wanted to simulate the idea of like a spearfishing attack where you pick one person who you're trying to target. We actually wanted to put a specific person's name on it, but that was like very hard to get approved, so we gave up on that pretty fast. A little more context for what the actual experiment was. Each of the 5 USBs were dropped at each of the 10 locations. That totals 50 USBs, and the experiment lasted for 2 weeks. Like I said, it was last spring. If the USBs were returned to campus authorities, then we would redrop them as long as it was within the experimental window. So obviously on the last day when I picked up any USBs left at public safety, I did not drop them again. And then we always dropped USBs in the morning. I would like to tell you how exhausting this was for the 2 weeks. I had to get up at 6 a.m. every morning and go to public safety and then redrop them all before everyone got on campus. It was really actually annoying, and I was very tired. So what about the callbacks? Because I needed to know when people plug them in. It's all fun and games to drop them, but there's no point if we don't know when they get plugged in. So these are canary tokens. I actually found out about this from Anthony for like a pen testing assignment I did the semester before. Basically, there's just a bunch of different tokens you can choose from. There's one that's just click a link, get a callback. We didn't use that one. Didn't make sense for USB. What we ended up going with was the Microsoft Word and the Microsoft Excel tokens. So basically how those work is we would put the files on the USB, and if somebody opened Microsoft Word or opened the document in Microsoft Word or Microsoft Excel, we would get a callback. We'll get to limitations later, but this was a big one for us because we could not get callbacks on automatic plugins, and we could not get callbacks if they didn't have Microsoft Word and Excel. And before you ask, yes, I tried to make my own. It is hard, and I ended up reinventing like 4 different canary tokens, and then I kind of just gave up, and we use these anyway. Because we also looked at the PDF one, but again, you needed like Adobe Acrobat for that. So basically how we made canary tokens, it's like the world's most simple thing I've ever done. So you click on the token you want, you put the information in, it asks you for your email and then what you want this alert to remind you of. In there is where we put the factor it was testing, so we put both the location and the design of the USB in that box. And then we also made multiple files per USB, so we also included the name of the file in there too. And then you just download the file and put it on your USB. It's that simple. So, I know what you're all thinking. You can just run any cybersecurity experiment on RIT campus anytime, no questions asked. And I'm so excited to tell you the answer is no, you cannot. We actually, why did 10 people just look up? That was crazy. We actually had to go through a lot approval-wise. We had to get this ethics certification. So you have any ethical questions, you should get your own training and not ask me. For approvals, we had to get approved by the Human Subject Research Office, the RIT Information Security Office, and the RIT Public Safety. If you're thinking of doing something like this, you definitely need staff support in that, first of all. And second of all, I would really recommend starting these processes sooner than later. I was supposed to do the approval the semester before my capstone, and then I didn't, and then we spent half of our capstone waiting to see if we were allowed to do the thing we were already signed up to do. So that was like a choice that I don't recommend you make. Anyway, let's get to the results because we did actually get approved, so we do have results. It's exciting. First of all, I was really surprised by the campus response. I guess I wasn't expecting. But basically, literally, we dropped the USBs at like 6 or 7 a.m. or something on the first day. And before I even got home, there was all of these things about, oh, this happened. So I guess I can't really. Someone sent this to me who knew we were doing the experiment, and people were like kind of pissed. Someone here just thought someone lost their USB. I doubt they plugged it in, honestly. Someone said like sorority sent something to them, and then this person just like called us out for scam, I guess. I think now is a good time to mention that if we didn't have like every single person possible on our side administrative wide, this would have been shut down before most people got to campus. So I guess that's good for the school in the sense that if there was someone who actually tried a real USB drop at the school to do something malicious, I don't think they would get very far. 'Cause like there would have been an email sent out by 8 a.m. when most people woke up if we did not have so many people approving it saying we could do it. Anyway, so with that said, these are how many USBs were returned to public safety, and they're by location. I think this is a good time to point out that Gracie's had the most USBs turned in, and that's in the same building as public safety. So I don't know if that was a bad call on our part or a good call on our part, but I think what this shows is that convenience might play a little bit of a factor because it's really easy to be like, oh, I see this USB, here's public safety right here, let me turn it in. Whereas maybe if you're a little farther away, it's not exactly going to turn out like that. Magic also had a lot of USBs that were turned in, and I think that these two places, even though it's not conclusive, I want to say that these two places are both relatively small compared to some of the other places we dropped. I don't know why no one turned them in from the sysadmin lab, genuinely. It was kind of weird. But I think when you have 5 USBs and they're like 4 feet apart, that's a lot different than when you have 5 USBs in the entire shed, and that's why I think we didn't get any turned in from the shed or anything like that. I was actually surprised we got 4 turned in from S-Lot. I don't know who cared enough to do that. Was it you, James? Okay. You just drop them around. That's how. If you actually did a USB drop at a company, you would drop them in the parking lot and expect employees to pick them up on their way in, and then you would hope they would plug them into, well, you wouldn't hope, but if you're the attacker, you would hope they plug them into their work computer or something else that's attached to the network in the company. This is the USBs public safety received by the type. So the exam was the most turned in, and then it kind of just goes down from there. I don't really know how important it is. Like, did people turn in the exam one because it was academic dishonesty or something? Maybe, or maybe that's just the ones they found. I don't know. I will point out that RIT and the Tiger ones had the least amount of plugins. Or had the least amount turned into campus safety, but they did have some of the higher plugins. So the chem exam actually had a lot more pings than I thought it would get. I didn't think that would be that relevant to most people, but I guess it was. The RIT one, though, by far had the highest amount of pings. And we believe that's because of there was that element of trust where you thought, oh, yeah, this belonged to someone in the RIT community, or it's one from RIT. And honestly, if I saw an RIT USB sitting on the ground, I'd be like, oh, what a good get. They must have given this out for merch sometime. And then you just, like, take it. The Tiger one, I was surprised didn't get more since it was so, like, flashy and it was also so cute. Who wouldn't want to keep it? But there's also a chance people plugged them in and just deleted the files without actually opening them, in which case we wouldn't have gotten a callback. So that's always a possibility there. And then the generic and the confidential ones did not really get that many hits, which I guess was kind of surprising, but I guess I'm happy the control didn't get that many, or else all the results would be kind of dumb. So. And this is pings by location, so this was probably where our most conclusive evidence was. We found that First of all, notice how the places with the most turned in USBs are the places with 0 plugins. So someone might have just been collecting those, honestly, like the second they saw them. I don't know. But for Crossroads, that was a general location. So was the Shed. So was F-Lot. And those are the 3 with the highest number of pings. So I think we found here that it would be more useful to just drop USBs in a general place with a lot of foot traffic. I would compare it to if you have 5 people, one of which might be interested in USB if you drop it in a specific location. But if you have 500 people, you're probably going to get more than 5 people interested in picking that up if 500 people are walking past it all day. So just some like little closing remarks here. Okay, there it goes. Some limitations we had. We already talked about this a little bit, but the canary tokens were only triggered if a user interacted with the file. That's because auto runs are disabled on most computers by default to avoid things like this, which is annoying for us, but it's okay. The canary tokens that we used were also only triggered by Microsoft Word or Excel, and pretty much any sort of file file canary token had some sort of issue like this. Like I said, the PDF one, you had to have like Adobe Acrobat or something. So there was always that caveat with those. And I think between those 2 factors, we can assume that there was a significant amount more plugins than what we got callbacks. And we should notice that the callbacks were like a minimum, not like the maximum plugins. I just said this, but auto runs are disabled, so there's definitely a lot of plugins that went unnoticed. USB scarcity was also kind of an issue. We got a lot of callbacks in the first couple days, first week even, and then after that they really started to slow down, and I think that's because of people were picking them up and keeping them. So even though the experiment lasted for 2 weeks, I don't think all 50 USBs were really circulating out in these locations for all 2 weeks. And we did kind of go around and try to find some in the second week to see if they were out there, and we weren't really finding many other than the ones that I was picking up from public safety. And then also another thing was someone brought up USB ports could be an issue because some laptops don't have like a USB-A port, which is what you needed to plug it in. So there's a chance some people found them and wanted to plug them in but just didn't. Some future work, we thought that a smaller scale might be useful because we had too many USBs in some locations and it made it amazingly obvious. So if you think back to our campus response slide, I guess the question there is, would the campus response have been so significant if we didn't have 50 USBs circling in like 5 buildings total? Maybe it would have gone a little more unnoticed, but then you might run the risk of less plugins or no one plugging them in if it's harder to find or something like that. So that's an interesting thing to test. Also, automatic callbacks. This is the one thing I would really, really, really love to see that we couldn't do. I don't want to speak for that other paper, but if I recall correctly, I think they also had some sort of caveat where automatically getting a callback upon plugin was not possible for them either. And then so additional factors might be interesting to test, like what does the time of day of the drop have an effect on the experiment? If we drop them in the afternoon, would it be different? Because we were dropping these ridiculously early, and if it's one person opening Magic's front doors at 8 a.m., maybe they're picking them all up when they notice them when they walk in for work in the morning, and then it never really reaches the student population because like someone collected them before then. So that's something you could test if you dropped it like later or something. And then collecting additional data. This is something we actually really tried to do, but like I said, we were trying to get approval and run the whole experiment and write a research paper on it in one semester. So we had to cut some things out, and this was something that got cut out because we were worried about the experiment getting caught up in the approval process. Basically, when you just have USBs and you just have callbacks, it's all anonymous, there's no personal information, and that's a lot easier paperwork-wise than trying to get information about people. So this was something we really tried for, but it was something that was not possible if we wanted to actually run the experiment. And then companies versus campuses, I would be curious to see if someone ran an experiment at a company, if there'd be different results. I'm assuming there's would be more plugins from a parking lot or something like that, because that's how most USB drops are run if you were at a company. It would be kind of dumb for you to like social engineer your way into a company building just to drop the USB when you could like just plug it in at that point. But I don't know. Maybe there's a reason. And then overall, was this a success or failure? I would say the successes was that it only takes one plugin for an attack like this to be successful. And we got like 21, I think, total. So that's more than one, I would say. But the failure here was that if we didn't have campus officials on our side, there would have been an email sent out before 8 a.m., before anyone got on campus, saying not to pick up these USBs. So would it have been successful with that email? I really don't know. And then I have just like a little demo. I'm going to show you guys how we made the canary tokens, and like I'll plug it into my laptop and get a callback really quick. So I have here my RITSEC USB, which you can get yourself with 3 presentations. Shameless plug. You can get there. It's possible. I can't hold this and type. So we're just going to make like a basic Microsoft Word canary token really quick. And then I'm going to give it my email. And then we're just going to say like, sorry guys. Okay, so we're just going to create that. And then we can download that file. Thank God it downloaded. It has like a stupid title. Also, I didn't really mention this, but we did end up editing the documents that we put on the USBs so that it had a message that was like, oh, this was an experiment for our capstone project. Please put it back. Probably no one did put it back, but we asked nicely, and we also told them about it. Okay, so this has like 10 literal labs from a class, I think, is on there, but that's okay. Let's go to downloads, and let's move. That's okay. I don't need you to see my downloads. All my IR, they're all like IRSec logo 1, IRSec logo 12. Okay. What is this titled? Okay. I didn't think this through because I'm going to have to open my email on here. Whoops. Okay, so basically on this USB is the canary token that I just put on it. Would anyone be interested in plugging it into their laptop? Yeah? Okay. It's in the capstone folder. Yeah, do you have Word? You have to have Word. It's okay. Okay. Good thing he's got 4 laptops, or else this won't work. Okay, give it back to me. Okay. I do, but it's not that interesting if I plug it into my own laptop. Yeah, what's up? Yes and no. Oh, sorry. The question was there things that we got pushed back on with the approval process? Yes and no. That was something that I would like to, okay, let's start here. Our faculty advisor is very familiar with the approval process and like the approval board and everything like that. So pretty much we wrote up what we wanted it to be, and then he kind of told us before we submitted it to bring it down a little bit so that way it would get approved. So like no, the board themselves didn't really have any pushback on it, but we didn't get any pushback because we didn't go that far with it when we submitted the actual approval thing. No, it's not actually. You're very wrong. You're about to open like a random like Wireshark capture or something.
The one that's named DocX.
That's not it. It's in here. And then it's
How do I flip it?
you weren't going to. Okay, so Garrett just like opened it on his laptop. Kind of sort of. Okay, it was a lot more organized for the experiment. We gave them actual titles and stuff, but just like for the purposes of this. Okay, so then we have here. Then we have here. This is the one that we just opened, that Garrett just opened, and the reminder says test for RITSEC. So that's, if you're watching when I made it, that's what I titled it. And then it gives us the IP address, the date, the time, user agent, and then you can also go to the alert history or like manage alerts, which we had to use when we actually did the experiment because there was a lot of callbacks we had to go through. Also worth noting that these added up really fast because every time you open it, it gives you another callback, even if it's from the same person. So there was a lot of time spent filtering through, like, oh, is this from the same IP address at like the same time? They just opened it 3 times for some reason. And that was like a lot. But yeah, that's pretty much my presentation. So are there any questions? Yeah, that's it. Yes, Hayden. Yeah. What? Yay! Thank you.